On this episode of Runner's Mouth, we're joined by Victor Ornelas. Victor is a former Division I runner for the UNC Tar Heels and the Senior Director of Vendor Partnerships at Fleet Feet. To say Victor has an inspiring underdog story would be a massive understatement. He bet on himself early on, stayed committed, and is now a household name in the run specialty industry. Oh, and he's also run for over 1,600 days and counting. Welcome back to Runner's Mouth. I'm very excited to be joined by an old friend of mine, someone I've followed for a long time in the running industry, Victor Ornelas. Victor, great to see you, man. How have you been?
Great. It's good to see you as well.
Awesome. Yeah, we're so excited. You know, you're our second guest on the podcast, but you are in terms of I'm a running geek. I've talked about that. I have a lot of friends in the industry who work in the industry. You are a big name in the Fleet Feet world. I'm going to give you, I had David Kilgore on, and it's kind of like, you got to give these people the flowers because, hey, yeah, you're not an A-list celebrity, but you might as well be to me because I love the running world and you do a lot for the running community. So you're a celeb in my book, man.
I appreciate that, David, and it's wonderful to be your second guest. And yeah, I enjoyed listening to your conversation with David, and amazing to learn more about him as well.
Awesome. I know. What a crazy... We could have talked about that World Marathon Challenge forever.
Oh, incredible. To be able to... I have a coworker that did a similar experience, but just thinking about traveling, is it 7 continents and completing the distance, Antarctica, hop on a plane, the recovery that takes to be able to prepare for the next day and conquer another marathon. It's just absolutely mind-blowing.
I did one marathon. I was like, I'm down for the count. I'm down for the count. Get me back home. I need to it's so, they're like superhuman, but you have your own feet and we will get into that. And that's more like present day, but I want to set the stage for the people who don't know Victor. Please just tell I know your history. You ran at UNC, but tell just a quick little synopsis of your running history and then getting into the professional world and then eventually working at Fleet Feet, which you've worked for a very long time, at least over a decade that I know and more. So yeah, tell us the Victor synopsis.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll start with more personal and then, like you said, working a professional. So Victor Ornelas, I was born and raised in Northern California in a small town called Fort Bragg, which is funny to think about the name Fort Bragg because there's a Fort Bragg, North Carolina, which is where I'm at. I'm in North Carolina. Fort Bragg is, near driving towards the coast from Chapel Hill. We're in Chapel Hill, Carborough area. But anyhow, Fort Bragg, California, born and raised. I'm first generation, so my mother is from Mexico, father's from Portugal. They met in California, and that's where I was born and raised. Wonderful town to grow up in. And then I had goals of becoming a physical therapist. So growing up, working in a gym, and there was a physical therapist in that area, and he really inspired me to consider pursuing that career path. And I had 2 amazing buddies that I grew up playing soccer with. That was the first sport that I got into, was soccer, and we decided to go to Santa Barbara City College together, and room up. And then from there, looked at schools of transfer since, in high school, I could have been a little bit more focused, could have gotten a little bit stronger from a performance and grades perspective. I would say my last 2 years in high school, I got more focused and dialed in. But the community college system is incredible in California and, of course, across the country. And so we roomed up, went to Santa Barbara City College. And then I would say from a running standpoint, I mentioned I played soccer. I did start running cross country and track and field later in high school. And I believe it was junior year is when I started to take it more serious. It was funny. There's a funny story where I enjoyed running for soccer. I was a midfielder, left mid, back and forth. Enjoyed the endurance side of it, enjoyed the challenge, pushing myself. I also played basketball a little bit. And but then when I approached the cross-country coach, I remember asking, hey, I'm curious in running, but can I wear the uniform with a little bit longer shorts as opposed to the short shorts? Can I explore that? And
that's funny.
All jokes aside, it was just funny at the time. And
no, that's too funny.
Started to explore and had success in that Northern California region. I would say I was humbled when I went into the Bay Area.
Super competitive area for all sports, but I know for running for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so But when I went to community college, there was no goals in around running and beyond high school. And I'll never forget, I was on the Santa Barbara City College track, which is absolutely beautiful. For those of you who have been in Santa Barbara before, it's a beautiful place in California. And then the track happens to be across the street from the beach. And so I was doing a workout. I remember this older gentleman there, and he just asked me if I'd run track, if I was interested. And, I later found out that he was going to be the coach that was the older coach was transitioning in. And then he was coming in to become a coach and help out, and started to plant the seed around, hey, I didn't realize that community colleges in the California area had cross country and track and basketball and just athletics that it was an opportunity to do. And so, yeah, he inspired me at the time, and then I was able to join. And then he was also, I would say, started to plant the seed around the potential to consider Division One or just the next level. I want to say it wasn't planting the seed just to say Division One. It was more consider going from the 2 years in Santa Barbara, and whatever school you end up transferring to, you should consider again walking on. You could be recruited. We'll see where you go from a performance perspective, but he was the one that planted that seed to consider doing it at the next level beyond high school.
That's amazing. Yeah, I didn't know that. I'm little context. My wife was. We'll get into the where you ended up going to college, but my wife went to. I know. I lived the Chapel Hill or the Tobacco Road rivalry, and I know how serious it is after being a Florida kid and be like. I was working at Flea Feet and being like, oh yeah, my wife's at Duke. And people were like, what? UNC fans were like, I don't want to buy shoes from you. Not really, but So Victor ended up going to UNC, but my wife we're Gator fans more so, but she went to grad school at Duke. And so this is 2014, 2015. And that's when I ended up meeting you, bouncing, that's how I know you and how we've followed each other on Instagram now, but I didn't know your beforehand story. I now it clicks that I remember you back then when we first met that you're from Northern California, but I didn't know the history. So I'm curious, what times were you running? Now I'm curious, how it brought you to UNC. I'm, from that community college. I was the same way as you. There's a community college here in Sarasota area, and they have a really good baseball team. And it's SCF. I don't even know if they still have it. It used to be called Manatee Community College, but they had a really good baseball team, JUCO and things. Now, and this is before what's the Last Chance U. This is before Last Chance U,
That's
where
right.
there's
That's
a lot
fantastic.
of now people know community colleges have JUCOs is more of a household name. This, you're a little bit older than me, but this is early 2000s, I assume, and we didn't know about that. So that is really interesting. You had no idea. So yeah, tell me how you went from community college to the coveted Chapel Hill.
That's a great question. And I didn't take it as serious. I took it serious, don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed running in high school. I bring this up if anyone that ran with me in high school would be like, come on, Victor, you were super serious into it. And I was. I guess I say that I didn't consider, one, I was the first in my family to go to college to begin with. And so the concept of moving away, I grew up in Northern California. It's a large state. So it's about a 9-hour drive from my hometown to Santa Barbara. And even that alone for my family, especially my mother, it was tough. She did, of course she wanted me to be successful and do better and study, but it's tough. And so, and she didn't understand what it took to go to college, even just what does a credit or a unit even mean when it comes to your classes you're taking and your degree. I know that you're interested in physical therapy, but okay. And so anyhow, I just didn't have that. I just didn't know what I didn't know, I guess, to summarize. And I had a couple coaches at Santa Barbara City College, and I would say one of them had coached this gentleman named Steve Scott, who I believe is still one of the Americans, at least I know at the time. I'm unsure about now. I'm not too great with the history books when it comes to mile times, but I believe for some time he held the most sub 4 miles as an American man for several years, and I believe coached at Cal State San Marcos, and he may have retired by now. I'm not 100%. I need to catch up on where he's at, but this coach coached him and was extremely inspirational on the potential that I had. And then I had another coach that came in a little bit later after him who coached at USC, Southern California, not South Carolina. And it was interesting. Two different coaches and two different perspectives. One coach was, hey, Victor, I think the distances suit you better, 3K, 5K, 10K. And that was the Steve Scott coach. And then the other coach thought that, well, maybe middle distance, the 800 and 1500. I quickly found out, especially to consider Division One type performances, I was better suited for the longer distances because I don't have as many fast twitch muscles as maybe I would like. And I think like many of us, when you start running high school and track, you want to have that fast mile. And I didn't quite have it to walk on to a larger, like institution. Coming out of high school, I was a 17-minute 5K guy. So 17:02, 17:03 or so. And my 2 mile time was maybe just shy of 11, like 10 and a half, 10:30 around there. And I was introduced to, running on the weekends as opposed to just running Monday through Friday. I was introduced to workouts and these tempo runs, just introduced to professionalized training, I would say, at Santa Barbara. In high school, no shade on my high school coach, but we did workouts, but it wasn't as structured, and I just didn't understand what it meant to have base mileage and what it meant to have that base mileage and then start adding in workouts and what the long run was. And Len Miller, which was my first coach at Santa Barbara City College, who then was Coach Steve Scott, he instilled some of the principles around distance running. And I mean, he even knew, I believe, Bill Dillinger at Oregon. And he even claims that at one point, knew Prefontaine. And if you know that history, then it's just powerful. And so I was able to quickly go from a 10:32 miler to 9:20 to 9:30, drop a minute pretty quickly with just some foundational principles. And he had shared, hey, I think there's a potential here. And that's what started to open up my mind around, hey, I want to pursue exercise sports science as a degree and go pre-physical therapy. And I want to explore beyond California. And so coming into my sophomore year at Santa Barbara City College, I met with the counselors, as you do in those type of programs. Also, I credit to my good friends, Daniel and Jeff, who are my close friends from high school, that we played soccer together at a very young age. Also, both first generation to go to college as well for their families. We viewed studying like a competition. Like we were focused on getting straight A's. Like we were focused on studying, trying to make ends meet, go to community college, and push each other. We're competitors, and it was fascinating to like be competitive, but studying along with being able to perform. I was running; they were not, but they were had part-time jobs and were still trying to achieve goals for themselves professionally. And I remember looking at schools and looking at all the big schools. And so again, back to Coach Miller, Oregon, Colorado, you name it, the big legendary programs. You read Run with the Buffaloes and you start being inspired by just the history. And I also start to learn that, well, some offer walk-on opportunities, some don't offer walk-on opportunities, some recruit more. And there's club teams, which are phenomenal. And there's some really fast club teams at these large universities. So kudos to if you've run on the club team side, like they're incredible. But then I started to look at North Carolina. Now, I mentioned basketball. I was a college basketball fan, and I will say I am a huge Michael Jordan fan at that time. And I found out he went to Laney High School in North Carolina. I found out he was a Tar Heel, and I had a Tar Heel hat, and I believe when I was 12 or 13 years old. And so being a fan of the Tar Heels out in this tiny town in Northern California, it started at that time. And I also started to look at some of the rankings around exercise sports science, and Duke University and North Carolina ranked very high, especially in the sciences and the medical side. And of course, just incredible institutions, including NC State. This whole area, as you know, living here, it's phenomenal to see the education and just phenomenal humans that come through here and study. And so I remember even calling the admissions office at North Carolina. And it's an in-state school, right? So they admit typically about 20% out of state. And I had shared, hey, what kind of grades do I need to consider transferring? And it may not be word for word, but it would say it's something along the lines of we need straight A's or a 4.0 GPA, then you consider transferring in. And let's just say, I mean, I achieved it. I did study hard. I would say academics don't come to me as easy. So there was a lot of late nights, a lot of studying, a lot of rewriting notes. But I credit my buddies that I was surrounded by that pushed me, and also just my teammates too. That Santa Barbara team was phenomenal. We had athletes that went on to UCLA, went on to Berkeley, went on to different universities to transfer and run track and field or field events. And so I was able to achieve those scores, and then I applied to the school. And I remember reaching out to the coach at North Carolina. At the time, I won't mention him, but he coaches now at Kansas, I believe, now. And you look at the women that were running at the time for North Carolina, Shalane Flanagan, who's later now won the New York City Marathon, long tenured athlete representing Nike, and I believe now a coach at University of Oregon. And the men too, I mean, just strong team that could be a bit intimidating when you look up the times and you start to think, well, let me compare my times to those times, and wow, I'm not in the same league. That's the way I thought. There's no way this is going to happen. And the coach did share that there was a walk-on opportunity in terms of a time trial, that you would show up, run a time trial. It was about 8K, and did two loops around what we call the pumpkin loop in this area now. It's not too far here from the office. And you go through that. So I got in academically to North Carolina and amongst of other universities, but North Carolina was the best. When you look at public school institution, exercise sports science program, again, academics first, I was able to be admitted to UNC Chapel Hill. And so then, without visiting ever beforehand, my first visit was to orientation, to ever visit North Carolina, and come here from California, never experienced humidity or any of this kind of heat. I'm more used to that dry, well, I mean, there's humid. It gets humid at times, but nowhere near, of course, of Florida or the South. But used to the 70 degrees again kind of temperature in Santa Barbara, California, and came over, and it was incredible to just the learning process around opportunities to be able to walk on potentially to programs, the type of mileage that some programs, because if you express interest at times, the coach will respond, here's a training plan, here's something to follow, we'll see you that day, here's the time trial day, here's the time we're looking for you to hit, and go from there. And so he also did loop me into a listserv of emails where some of the current North Carolina athletes were communicating, sharing some of their summer training plans, which was inspiring to hear. Of course, you're coming in as a junior, so I haven't built the relationships of those that have built them when they came in as freshmen and sophomore, which is an adjustment, but so is transferring from Santa Barbara, California to Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So,
oh my gosh, what an amazing story. I mean, I really, this podcast is about just telling stories and peeling back the curtain of running, and whether it's someone who's a rep or someone like David Kilgore who does whatever David Kilgore does, or me who doesn't work in the running industry but has always been around it and worked in it in the past. I think your story from the academic side, from the athletic side, just from that could be a Disney movie that I'd be like cheering, go Victor, go, like really, I don't even want to call you an underdog because it seems you've been like just. Because underdog almost seems like you really, I mean, the first generation part of it, the moving cross country, there was a lot of, it speaks to me volumes. I mean, you and I relate in so many ways with school did not come easy to me. No knock on my high school coach. It just wasn't, I feel like most high school runners, yeah. I mean, unless you come from like a state champion school where the coach might as well be coaching in college, it's, get the kids involved. Don't get them injured. Get them to see if they fall in love with the sport, or it's a sport that they do to offset when they're not playing soccer. Then when you go, so obviously you were naturally talented. I was naturally talented. We're just, small Energizer bunnies who could go. But then you start fine tuning that, what an amazing community college you went to. Oh my gosh. It sounds like you didn't just go to some like rinky dink place. You went to a program.
Yeah,
like a true program.
It was not. I would say that the track team was larger. The cross country team was tiny. It was actually two of us. It was me and another gentleman that would go into Southern California and attend some of the other community colleges, Pierce Community College, Santa Monica Community College, Compton Community College, and go. I mean, I don't believe Santa Barbara Compton had cross country, but there was track meets at Santa Monica. But we would do some of the cross country races, me and him, and travel. And kudos to the coach that would. We weren't scoring. We didn't have 7, but it was us two just getting after it, representing Santa Barbara, and then meeting so many of the others. But I appreciate you sharing underdog. And for your audience, anyone who listens to this podcast that perhaps is in high school and wants to consider going to the next level, is I do have that mentality though. I at times, hey, I'm the first to go to school. I may not know what this looks like, may not have all the answers, but I'm gonna get comfortable with being uncomfortable, which in distance running, you tend to learn how to manage that. And yeah, I mean, looking at the times and showing up, it's surreal that I used to dream, can I put on that North Carolina singlet? Do I deserve to put on that North Carolina singlet? And am I going to be able to hang on and try to just be one of these folks on the team? And it's scary, but also motivating. And also, I would say that you're exposed to, the business of Division I athletics is much different landscape currently now with NIL. So to say the business back then, it seems a bit odd to mention the business, but
right.
It's also going to be pretty straight up. You either can make the cut or you can't. And that's it. And credit to my coaches that gave me a chance. I showed up to campus. I was, again, not used to the humidity, moved in, transfer student. I show up to the Pumpkin Loop I just mentioned for that time trial. I'm nervous as could be. And I'll never forget this. Back to that listserv, there was an individual on the team. His name was Doug. And I remember him inviting me for a run to go around Chapel Hill. I was like, all right, I'm on campus before. I haven't met anyone on the team. This would be fun to go for a run with him. I forget the pace we ran. I think it was 9 or 10 miles. But let's just say we were moving at a pretty good clip. I wasn't used to the humidity quite yet. I wasn't used to getting on trails and the spider webs. And, I just felt like, wow, I am in a much different location than certainly Santa Barbara, California. But it was a good run, and it was great to meet him. And I finished up there motivated, also hydrated as quickly as I could because of the heat. But then showed up for that time trial. I had a terrible time trial. Terrible. I did my first loop, and then came the second. And typically the top 5 men will be together in the first loop, the first 2.5 miles. And then they turned the dial and they started to go. Now, I believe they were tasked with the top 3 need to stay together. It wasn't just drop. It was the top 3 need to stay together, but let's push. Let's push. Mm-hmm. That second lap, I was dropped. I left there feeling pretty defeated, saying there's absolutely no way I'm going to get a call to be able to be on this North Carolina cross country and track and field team. And I'll never forget the phone call from coach. And he had shared, hey, we think there's more there. And I don't recall if he mentioned Doug's name or the individual, about that run, but certainly it been shared that they thought I had more in me, and perhaps it was the travel, perhaps it was coming all the way from California and not being acclimatized to whatever. But in short, we want you to show up, and we're gonna have this cross country race. It's a unique format where you're gonna have a partner. It's gonna be at Wake Forest University, not too far from here. And I believe I had to run 2.5, and then I handed off to a partner. They would run 2.5. It was kind of a relay format, which is really interesting, unique. And thinking about it now, that I can't think of many relay-oriented type cross-country races.
Yeah.
But I was able to hold my own there. And I remember that finishing up that cross-country race and still asking myself, am I on the team or not? But I'm just going to keep showing up. And I kept showing up. And I got issued a uniform. I will say my first year, I didn't travel to some of the larger races. I didn't get Nike product that some of the brand. Of course, you're at a university like North Carolina, big representative of the Nike brand. But I was in that. You travel to local races. You don't go to some of the big cross country invites, Notre Dame invite, some of these others. You're going to stay local. You're not going to get some of the product, maybe some of the other perks. And so it was also one of those reminders too. And it was motivating though. I think you take it as defeating that, I'm still not quite in it. I'm here. I'm showing up to practice. I'm grinding. I'm running for the first time these 80, 90 mile weeks, and my body's getting used to this thing. I'm not necessarily getting the Nike gear. I'm not necessarily getting the extra recovery drinks after going to the weight room, but I'm not going to let that be defeating. If anything, I'm going to let it fire me up because I want to be able to travel and be in that top seven. I want to be able to get that Nike shoe that you get issued around the season and not have to struggle to make ends meet and try to buy shoes as you can and try to keep up as much as you can because again, I transferred in first time. I was paying out of state tuition, taking out student loans. I was fortunate to get some scholarship from a previous university, from the community college because I applied with of course the high grades. I was able to get some support, but it was still a little scary though, like paying the out of state, going in a little bit into debt, figuring out what this is going to look like, and is it worth the sacrifice to try to make this Division I program, or do I just scrap it and get a job and not try to take out so much money in student loans and put myself into a hole coming out of this thing? And so that was an interesting time for sure, but I was able to get a chance and still kind of scrape by and to not be too all about me in North Carolina for the 26 minutes we've been
It's
chatting.
okay.
But
I'm
I'll
like
say
on
that,
this is like the Disney movie, like but I mean that in the best way,
yeah,
like
yeah.
truly. But go ahead, please.
And I would say that that year was foundational, learning, training, nutrition, just again, building the principles. And I'd say that I went from being on that, like, I guess the last three that were hanging on to being able to be scoring. I remember ACC championships the following year and scoring in our top three. So I was able to finally get into that top seven, go to Notre Dame invite. Also humbled by how fast some of those universities, University of Wisconsin at the time, taking it out in something like a 4:28 mile in the first mile of that cross country race. But it was just eye opening, and I think set a new standard that I've taken into my professional career around when you think of the best is an Olympian. The best is signing a pro contract. The best is it just recalibrated what I define as the best. And it was just a phenomenal learning experience that I've taken with me into my career and stories that I hope to share with my daughters too, as they look at what they want to do in their future. Is you don't be intimidated. If there's a chance, put yourself in the mix. If you're that final three, hang on if it really matters to you, and continue to push. Because there's not many people that continue to push through that discomfort, and it starts to really show when you're in that position, like what you're made of.
Sheesh, I have so many things to comment on. I'll keep it simple because you said I don't need to add commentary to your amazing commentary. I will just say simply incredible. And I need to say you get to, for the rest of your life, can say something that pretty much, I don't know, 0.0000001% of the world's population get to. You and Michael Jordan were both pretty much teammates. You know what I mean? Both UNC alumni and, student athletes. That, I mean, and Michael Jordan being the greatest, if not, you don't need to get into the LeBron MJ thing, but it's Michael Jordan. It's Michael Jordan, man. That's MJ, that's so awesome. You wearing the hat. Like I said, I have so many little snippets of your story that I want to comment on, but you did it, man. You went from barely hanging on the pumpkin loop to scoring at the ACC championship the next year. Incredible. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Now, let's go to the professional side of it. I'm just going to ask you this question. When did you start working at Fleet Feet?
Great question. So my title here at Fleet Feet, so I've been with Fleet Feet over 18 years, and my formal title is Senior Director of Vendor Partnerships. It's managing our vendor partnership relationships, and I can explain that a little bit later on. But
sure.
Yeah, when I graduated from UNC Chapel Hill with exercise sports science degree, I applied to physical therapy school. There's a theme here. I didn't get in.
Yeah. All right, you gotta move back to California. You gotta move. You're gonna keep heading east. You gotta move to Europe or something. That's the story. No, that's so funny.
For sure. And some of the feedback was, you need more observation hours. Okay, we'll get some more observation hours. Hey, I found out that there was this running store in a Runner's World ad called Fleet Feet. Now, the closest Fleet Feet growing up to me was Santa Rosa, California. And that was about 2.5 hours. And like many of us are inspired to run, you start getting the Runner's World magazines at the time, and you're reading the articles and seeing all the inspirational content in there. And so I remember getting a Runner's World and looking on the list and like, what on earth is Carborough? I had no idea what that town was, where it was. I knew it was in North Carolina. Didn't realize that it's literally the town right next to Chapel Hill, and like you
And
can,
I
you
didn't
know,
know that either. Yeah, it's so funny. People
yeah,
who don't, yeah, I was like, what is Carborough? And then you go and it literally is Chapel Hill. It's like I call it like I mean, and there's a Carborough High School. Is there a
yeah,
Chapel Hill High School and a Carborough High School?
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
yeah, I was working for NC Runners Mile Split, and I went and did a little feature on. I'm still friends with the coach. I don't know if she's still the coach, Mimi O'Grady. Shout out to her. She was
yeah.
the Carborough High School boys and girls coach, and I was like, "What is this?" For people who don't know, it's just like it's literally in. It's like right next to the UNC campus. So yeah,
Exactly.
I was like, "What is Carborough too?" So, anyways, back to your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I could run to campus about a mile from our office. So you're right.
Right? Yeah.
And heard about the store, visited the store, and it was wonderful to see. My first run specialty experience was actually at Santa Barbara Running Company in Santa Barbara when I started to train, run more miles. I went through my first fit experience at Santa Barbara Running Company, and then when I saw Fleet Feet, I saw the Brannick device. Those who aren't familiar, the measurement tool to help measure feet and arch height and arch elongation and those things. And when I graduated, I didn't get into school right away, and I thought, wow, that'd be amazing to work at a running store like Fleet Feet. And I found out too at the time the franchisee, the couple that owned the business, the wife was a physical therapist, and husband ran the business. I was like, oh, that'd be incredible to be able to get a job there, pick her brain, also get some observation hours in the Chapel Hill community and start to connect with different physical therapy practices. So yeah, that's how I first started Fleet Feet. So started part-time, then full-time working retail, and my total of 4 years working retail at Fleet Feet in Carborough. And like many who have worked retail, you start on the floor, go full-time, and then I was exposed to purchasing. So I bought accessories for some time. So those who aren't familiar with accessories within the running store, we're talking socks and insoles and nutrition. And then I bought footwear for a brief period of time there as well. I did leave briefly. Now here, the UNC alum left briefly to go work at Duke University. I left briefly.
Oh my gosh, didn't
Yeah,
know that
yeah.
part.
So still with the goal of physical therapy school, I heard about this program actually through Fleet Feet. I went to go do a what we call like a fit talk. We go to a different, whether it's different businesses or programs, to talk about what we offered at the store when it came to the fit process, different solutions to help runners, walkers, etc. And there was a Duke Run Walk program at Duke. And I came there and I talked about what we offer at Fleet Feet. And I met the individual there. They're like, hey, actually, we're looking at hiring what's called a fitness instructor, which works within it's called Live for Life, the employee wellness program at Duke that represents university and the hospital system. And so you can work as a fitness instructor, work really closely with physical therapy, and also offer some personal training, work closely with the nutrition department. So I left briefly to go experience that. And it's interesting when you have someone visit a running store, Fleet Feet or non-Fleet Feet, and there's typically there's this a desire. Like, I'm interested to learn more about solutions to help me walk, or I got referred by a medical professional to help with my plantar fasciitis, or my friend told me about this store and they do a great job with fitting. And so you experience it, David, you've worked in it. And at times when you're in a physical therapy clinic or in a personal training scenario, that maybe the individual has to go through that, not necessarily wants to go through that. There's just a different relationship and connection there. And I felt like I was having just a stronger impact working on the sales floor at Fleet Feet and using some of my exercise sports science background, biomechanics background that at times I was doing. And this is, again, not to speak negatively about that. It was a phenomenal opportunity, phenomenal path. But for me personally, I felt like I was having more of an impact working at Fleet Feet. And that was one of the shifts. I came back to the store and was our director of education. And to make a long story short, I was hired here at our corporate office in 2011, and in a role focused on supporting some of our vendor partnerships, but also going to our large franchises and training all of them on biomechanics, customer service, best practices, our fit experience. And it was amazing, leveraging and using my exercise sports science background, biomechanics passion for product, and then bringing it all together and traveling across the country, visiting Fleet Feets across the US and sharing best practices around fit experience and customer service.
Is that what you was that your position in 2014, 2015? Yeah, because I remember that. I remember that, my introduction to you, not just I remember you took me on a 10-mile run, and that was right. I was on the Albular Trail. Just took my first summer off since 2008, because I started running in high school, and I was just like you, a late bloomer with, I wanted to play football and baseball. The people who've listened to this podcast know about that. And it's like, no, dude, you get to do the most boring thing in the world, run. It's not boring to me anymore, but I wanted to hit the ball or catch the ball,
Sure.
like you wanted to kick the ball
Yeah.
in soccer. But so I graduated college, and in 2014, the spring of 2014, took my first summer off, and then ran on the Albular Trail with some new shoes from Fleet Feet that I got at Fleet Feet Durham, and that's when I got my first experience with shin splints. It was so, and then that's what ended up plaguing me that whole time. So when I met you, I went on a 10-mile run with you. I don't know if you remember it on the Tobacco Trail. I was dying because I was just like not in shape, and I was like dealing with such crazy injuries. But that's besides the point. I'm reminiscing on the time meeting you, and I just remember that you were traveling, and a lot of the education. And there was a really cool corporate retreat that like a workshop that you guys hosted, and I was kind of I went to the marketing portion with Nick Kraus. I don't know if he's still
Yeah.
at Fleet Feet, but I know
He
he's your
is.
buddy. Yeah. Oh,
Absolutely.
he's still at Fleet Feet.
We were college teammates, roommates, and we've been working together. I believe he just hit 17 years at Fleet Feet, and yours truly said 18. So
You
absolutely,
guys are
still here.
legends.
Yep.
Yeah, good, good, good. I was hoping he was because I think about you guys fondly, and you guys were awesome. And I mean, that's great. Like my best friends in college, we're doing this podcast. Maybe Gil and I end up, this really becomes like a business or something we do, but most of us are in totally different worlds. So the fact that like you're like my best friend is a doctor.
Oh wow.
I'm not a doctor. So like we have so much in common, but our professional worlds have like gone. So I'm so glad that you guys got to go hand in hand. So many questions about Fleet Feet and everything. So you doing the education, there's a big portion of like when I started, so I move away, but I still, I was connected with you, and then I worked at Fleet Feet Sarasota for a couple of years before I started getting more into the marketing world outside of the run specialty. I would have stayed there forever, but then I get married, and as you know, a lot of travel. So I was like, my wife and I were long distance through college. I was like, I'm not going to do the travel right now. So I got more of the 9 to 5 job, but I obviously stayed in contact with you and saw what
Yeah.
you were doing. And that brings us to the big, and obviously no one knows it better than you. So I just want to ask, you spearheaded the 3D fit process that Fleet Feet, you can obviously correct me if I'm wrong, still uses to this day. But please, I'm all this. I mean, this is definitely going to be a big portion of this interview. What I want to hear about. I mean, Fleet Feet's one of, if not the biggest running specialty stores in the country or the world, and you're the guy behind their fit process. So please tell me all about that. I'm all ears.
It was a team effort. I mean, I
Sure, 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 sure,
privilege and
sure.
opportunity to spearhead it and lead it, but definitely wouldn't have been possible without the support of many team members. Yeah, like I mentioned the rank device earlier. I mean, it was a tool we used for years, and back probably 2004, 2003, 2004. Many running stores have phenomenal fit experiences, including Fleet Feet, non-Fleet Feet. I mean, it's just, especially when you grant that the passion and the product and the solutions that are available, especially current state. Oh my gosh, the amount of product and solutions out there are amazing. But back then, we want to create an element of consistency, right? And so using a brand device at the time, we use that as a tool, and then just had some best practices that we'd recommend to our stores to consider when it came to measuring feet. Measuring both feet, what they do statically, size, width, and then dynamically. What do they do when you go through the walking and then potentially running, depending, of course, on your goals. And so we had that consistent protocol for measuring feet at the time using a branded device. And pressure plate technology has been around for 20, 30 years, especially if you've worked in a biomechanics lab or you've been at some of the big box stores and you've seen the Dr. Scholl's machine and you step up on the mat and you see the pressure, the red and the green, hurricane level 5 versus 2, just how much pressure you're going to have. And so there's been solutions out there for a number of years. And so in say 2017 timeframe, and before that 2015, 2016, we started to explore, well, what kind of technology solutions are out there in the marketplace that are retail friendly, that could be tablet based, especially with just the nature of working in a store, not a kiosk, is fast. That's another consideration where you can do it in 5 seconds or less in store. That also doesn't take up a lot of retail space. So you look at retail and you have a store environment, you want it to be also smaller, if you will, not take up a ton of space, not create tripping hazards, all those areas. And so we look closely on, are the retail ready solutions? And then the other end of the spectrum was, we want the solution to be an assist to our outfitters, but I would say not be the hero in the interaction. Because if we have a customer who's believing the technology more so than the experience that the individual you're working with has, that could create some challenges potentially. And so we want the solution to assist in the interaction, to instill confidence, to be able to capture the data to help inform decisions and recommendations. But at the same time, we're all so unique, and we all have had different experiences with what kind of footwear we've worn, what kind of injuries we've navigated, shin splints to plantar fasciitis to surgeries. There's so much that a technology can't necessarily all capture, but you capture that with amazing questions that you ask during an interview with a customer that comes in, and you're able to tailor solutions that make the most sense for them. And so, to make a long story short, trying to find a solution that would help assist but not be the hero. And so in this case, we found this solution, which is kind of fun. It was like a grad school project for these amazing individuals in Stockholm, Sweden, that created this company called Volumental. And we heard about them, and it was timely because they actually happened to be in New York City at the time for a Retail Federation show that's hosted annually. We're able to, and we looked at other solutions too. I mentioned that's the solution we went with. We looked at a variety of other solutions in the marketplace too, and stress tested them as well, and using and partnering with. We have a brand advisory council that is representative of many of our stores that are just incredible individuals with experience as well, that were partners in this whole process, tremendous partners in this whole process, where you're able to just look at these solutions through a variety of filters, large volume stores, smaller formatted stores, and be able to come up with some conclusions. And so again, timing was great. They came down, we were able to test it, and we started to feel pretty good about the solution that they had in place at the time. And they didn't have much placement at the time in the US. I mean, 3D scanning in running stores in 2017, you didn't hear much about. Now, there was New Balance, for example, has retail locations. They were one of the first that partnered with this company and measuring globally. And they had a couple locations, I believe the Flatiron store in New York City and their HQ store in Boston, where they had the solution. But in running specialty, running focused oriented stores, there wasn't 3D scanning happening as much or at all. And Carborough was one of the first locations, Vondra 62, I still remember the scanner name, that we brought into Carborough, and we started to test, and at the time was also testing with a franchise location in Pittsburgh that was tremendous, and working side by side. And then we grew test stores to many, many, many more test stores. But to wrap that up, we wanted to find a solution that was retail friendly, that supported our outfitters. And we're coming in here with this innovation, and introducing innovation can be scary at times. And we've built something really great for a number of years, and like, we're bringing this in. Do we really need it? And so there's a lot of those type of discussions, that there's some highs and lows in the process as you introduce newness to the experience. But it was also a lot of learning as well that I'll take for the rest of my career, and what it takes to bring a whole team together, our office, marketing, operations, retail operations, our stores, and all come together to be able to put out a solution. And more importantly, is a value add to our customers. Is that at the core? That's what we're trying to deliver the best experience possible to our customers. And we're just trying to do the due diligence to ensure that it's going to be a good solution. And anytime we're in this fleet feet, especially on the corporate side, and you're presenting a solution to a franchise or a company door, you want it to be a value add, and you don't want to create more stress you don't want to create more chaos, and more importantly, you want to create great experiences for customers. And so, yeah, it was tremendous to lead that process, but also a great amount of learning. And I can't believe we just hit 10 million scans, because at the time, I mean, that was scan one that I remember we started to do, and here we are, just surpassed 10 million.
That's incredible. I was about to say, when you first started telling the story about you guys wanting this next solution and seeking out who you're going to work with, or what you're going to do to spearhead this and implement it, I was thinking the impact you end up having or the choice you make is going to have an impact on millions. And then you end up saying 10 million. I was about to, when I was ready for you to finish your statement, I was going to say the millions thing, and then you say you just surpassed 10 million. So that's so awesome. Now, in could you, in layman's terms, just really quick explanation of what it's doing?
Yeah, it's efficient and quick. So what we do, of course, we greet you, go through we want to understand what you brought you into the store to be able to create a path for success for you, and whatever the journey looks like for you: running, walking, pain relief. So it could be oriented around seeking comfortable shoes, being a fit parent, trying to get into running again, being a hybrid athlete, exploring, strength training, conditioning. It could be serious runners that, explore. And so, I mean, that's critical. Now, to the 3D scanner specifically, that is part of that journey and that
Of
interview and that
course.
process. And
I
so,
love that you said that. I just as someone who worked at Fleet Feet and understands it both from being the fit expert and then also going through the fit process as just a new customer. Like, when I trained for my marathon, I needed to get some new insoles. You know what I mean? So they put me on that, and I've experienced it. The machine isn't doing the work, and Gilbert says it in our interview that dropped today.
yeah,
This interview with you is obviously going to be in a couple weeks. He mentions it a lot about people searching for shoes and how AI could be a tool to like explain kind of like a simple training plan, but it can't feel. And that, obviously you're going to say you work at Fleet Feet, but I'm going to say it that if anyone's interested in starting to run and just doesn't even know where to start, you need to go to a Fleet Feet, or hey, if there's not a Fleet Feet near you, a run specialty store, and get fitted, because yes, the machine is there as a complement to the process. Is really like, it's the whole journey, and that fit expert is there for you. It's like it's a truly like it's just a special experience. It's kind of like a therapy session. I miss being on the fit stool, and I'm sure
yeah,
you do, because you're not
for
on the
sure.
floor as much. It was awesome. You talk about your life, you talk about their goals. They're nervous.
Yeah,
You make, weight loss goals. Maybe
yeah,
they have these goals that they think are as insane as being a small kid from Northern California and running at Michael Jordan's college, like big dreams, but they're afraid of it. It's clearly I'm passionate about this stuff, and
yeah.
it's special. It's more than just going and buying shoes. And the machine is just a compliment. So I didn't mean to cut you off. I just
No,
want to like nail that hammer down that I'm drinking the Kool-Aid of all of this, and I'm picking up what you're putting down. I hope the listeners do too. So please, yes, continue.
for sure. It can be intimidating, and we're here to make it not intimidating, and everyone's welcome to explore. And so the 3D scanner, it has four little towers, and in each one of those towers has basically, like, I know I'm simplifying this and I'm not giving you the technical term, but imagine like your iPhone camera. It's like three little cameras in each tower. And so we capture your information on an iPad, name, all the info, because your scan, it's your scan, will be emailed to you after you come into the store when you share your email and your information. So we would hand you the iPad, you plug in your information, you'd step up on the scanner. Barefoot is our best practice. If you want to wear socks, wear socks. So, whatever's most comfortable to you. If we go barefoot, we see just more specificity around your toes and in other areas. But again, if you wear socks, you can wear socks, and it's going to function just fine. So we then get you on the scanner. You stand statically for 5 seconds, sometimes even faster. And so both feet on the platform. We sit there, we're going to say, hey, all right, we're going to now capture a nice image of your foot. 5 seconds, push, it scans, and then you step off. And then we're back to the fit stool, and we're having a conversation around what we just captured. So it's going to capture 12 points of data around the shape of your foot. And when I mentioned 10 million, when I worked in store and did train staff, at times you'd have 10 individuals, staff, outfitters, looking at one foot in a training session. We're going to watch you walk and then observe what we see, or we're going to look at the foot, measure the foot, and observe if you have a high arch or a low arch, or if you have a wide foot or a narrow foot. And at times there could be variation in those answers. I would say inconsistency in those answers across those 10 outfitters. That's just in our perception and what we see. The nice thing about the scanner is when you compare yourself to 10 million, you get added to a scale and you compare your foot to the rest of the feet in the database, and it puts you on the scale. Is your arch truly high compared to our database? And so then you're on a scale and you see, okay, here is the length of my foot down to the millimeter. Here is the height of my arch. Here's the width of my forefoot, the heel. And so we get these measurements, and then we then share with you on what are the most essential elements that we gather from it that will help inform the proper footwear recommendation for you. So 5 seconds, capture that data, we share it with you, so you're in the loop. That would be emailed to you afterwards, so you have it at home and it's your data. And the other piece is that some of our stores also complement the 3D scan with a pressure plate. And that has about 5,200 sensors or so. And that captures the dynamic piece. And the dynamic piece would then look at, okay, now that we do the static, we'd watch you on the pressure plate, look at the dynamic, and let's see how the foot is moving across the surface to then capture some of those pressure outputs. Now, stores that don't have that pressure visually will watch you walk barefoot and still capture some of the key indicators that we're looking for that could potentially lead to some different running form, excessive pronation. I don't want to get too technical, but you start getting some of those outcomes that help also inform the type of shoe to recommend. I would say the last thing, to try to keep it not so technical, but one thing that's nice too to complement the 10 million is we're able to also see with the feet that we've scanned and the purchases that were made, we're able to help to model out what is the foot shape that typically buys this specific shoe model, which is really interesting. So, we would still select a specific shoe. I like to think about it as like the Google of foot shape. So if we have 10 million scans, we can then correlate it to sales. Then we're able to see across shoe styles, what is the ideal foot shape that buys that shoe. And what I love about that, it's grounded in comfort. We often say, and we always say that customers need to buy a comfortable shoe in the moment. There's no break-in period. Find the shoe that feels good, feels comfortable, and then walk out the door. And so we're able to capture that moment and start to develop a ghost foot, if you will, of each shoe we have in the back room. So you get scanned, we have this database of ghost feet and shoes, and we start to then combine the two and see what is the ideal foot shape and shoe shape combo. And this is outside of the midsole, the technical, the plates and the supercritical foams and the geometries. This is purely matching shoe shape to foot shape.
Man, I bet you're in some really cool meetings, man. I didn't realize I'm this much of a, obviously running's my life. My Instagram is Chinsky Runs, and I'm known as the runner and all that. But wow, I'm not like a nerd about a lot of stuff, and I could listen to you talk about this all day long. And I mean the nerd part in the best way. Again, me and you weren't the best students. We had to really work hard, but
Yeah.
this stuff, this data and stuff, I would eat it up like a bowl of ice cream. So I want to have you back on, and we'll touch more, and we'll go into more of the shoe technology, and I want to ask you about super shoes and more of the run specialty. But for the sake of time, we'll segue to something really amazing that you have accomplished and are still accomplishing. I know about it. I watch it, and I know that other brands have kind of sent you things, and I'm just going to get right to it. People, Victor has run for 1,619 consecutive days. When did you realize you wanted to get on a running streak? Or did you, when you started, you didn't even know that you were on a running streak? How did that happen?
That's a deep question, David. In terms of the run streak, I will say that, coming out of starting to work professionally, traveling a little more when it comes to work and being out there, I got out of and I don't blame anyone else but myself. That's accountability there in terms of getting out of the routine of, I was still running, but maybe not as consistently, not as far. just wasn't taking care of prioritizing my fitness as much, and just leaning in much more into the traveling and other and work, quite frankly, and just leaning into that heavily, which again, I was just at the time, it was a season in my life. And I found myself wanting to get back into shape. The challenge is that, as I say, comparison is the thief of joy. I constantly was comparing myself to what I ran at North Carolina, or even when I graduated from UNC, was working in the store. I still had goals of, at the time, qualifying for Olympic trials in the marathon and trying to go under 220 in the marathon. And so we had a training group. We were training, and got kind of close, but then started to work a little bit more and moved away from that. And so, but again, back to the comparison piece, I would have moments when I wanted to get back into training or put a race on the calendar, and I was trying to push the pace faster than I was ready to, and I would get an injury or I'd run into another uncomfortable moment. And so it was just looking in the mirror, as David Goggins would say, the accountability mirror, and just truly looking at, like, here's where you are fitness-wise right now, Victor. You're not where you were in the past, and you need to stop comparing yourself to the past and just own where you are right now. And knowing and owning where you are right now, I also find myself, as people would ask about my running, saying, back in the day, I did this. Or even showing up to local 5Ks, hey, Victor, are you going to win this one? And you're like, I don't know. Like, I'm try. We'll see how it goes. So just that, like, internal built up pressure around back in the day, here's what I used to do, or showing up to race and I might try, we'll see what happens. I also, and this isn't a weight gain discussion, but let's just call it, like, I did start to gain a little bit of weight and just got out of the fitness routine.
That's an important part of it. I'm a slimmer guy, and I truly, a lot of my friends who were really fast in college or just, ran a lot, they want to get back to it, but they have, have I gained weight since I was 21? Yes, but I know that they've put on, that's a big piece of it, man. So I emphasize, I have my own issue, like I said, my shin splints, but yeah, I haven't put on like 20 pounds since I was in college, but I have put on a little bit, and I know that people do go through that, and it's a big piece. Your body's different. I treated it, gosh, you're preaching to the choir of when I went to go run my marathon. This is about you. I'm just going to say this quick piece is treating it. I had a friend who was like, it's a different season. It's a different, you're not in college anymore. You have fun with it. We were so competitive. We're running so fast. So like during our, take it easy, focus on your health, and really treat it differently, rather than comparing it, because I do that too. I did that too, and I am doing it less. So, you're preaching the choir, man.
And there's moments where you start to build a little bit of fitness, and all of a sudden it's like, I'm back. And you start then maybe pushing it. Even in the moment, you're in a workout, you're in a run, you start to push the pace, and then you find yourself the next couple days paying for what you had. Now in the moment, you're like, okay, here we go, I'm just building. And then at times you might find out that you're not so much. And so it was, I believe, February 2nd, 2022. Actually, I wanted to do a run streak January 1st, your classic, January, let's start it. But I did miss a day, and that was February 1st. And then repicked it up February 2nd. Mm-hmm. But this time around, and I tried a couple times, like, all right, I want to get back into it, and I would push too hard, and I would lose momentum. But this time on that February 2nd, I think it was 2.4 miles, and I believe it was just shy of 10-minute pace, like 9:50 or so per mile. And I went out, it was hot, I was uncomfortable, and I also say I was 53 pounds heavier than I am right now. I did not like looking at pictures of myself. I felt like I totally had lost it. And being in the store, you'd meet some reps or people that ran in college before, and at times you'd be like, really? They ran in school? Wow. Like, that's amazing. And I often thought, like, I don't want to be perceived as that person that people are then like, really? He ran in school? I don't know about that. Mm-hmm. And again, that sounds a bit maybe shallow or a bit judgmental in terms of just the way someone appears, but unfortunately I would sometimes think of that, like, I need to get back into it. And so again, I was 53 pounds heavier than I am right now. And again, it was just, my knees were hurting, my back was hurting, I was exhausted. And
you have kids, you know what I mean? So like,
just started to like go through the reps, man. And just like, try to not think of pace, not think of distance, just think of getting out. And my run streak minimum was a mile. And so that is what I like. All right, just get in a mile at least and try to build that momentum. And I remember getting around 3 or 4 months into it and thinking, am I ever going to lose the weight? Because this is tough. I did make some changes too. I would say that what contributed to the weight gain was what did contribute to the weight gain and probably wasn't helpful was drinking IPAs and beverages that also
You
were.
guys are in a pretty good beer drinking area. I have frequented the breweries in Carborough, Chapel Hill. So it's hard to get away from those. But yes,
that did not help. And also around the run streak, I don't share this often, but that was also the moment where I decided to eliminate alcohol from my life and just in general, like not consume at all. That was also, it's a process too, because nothing but you run the long run and you get a nice IPA after, but just eliminate and just completely change the lifestyle. Because if I'm not waking up focused and sharp and had good rest, good night's sleep, and for me, like alcohol inhibited sleep a good bit, and I wasn't waking up sharp and I was feeling fatigued, and so eliminating that, not being focused on the distance and as in like pace as a way to define a successful run. Just take what the day gives you and just keep stacking bricks and just slowly building. And I remember getting to like 6 months and I started getting comments from people being like, whoa, you're looking a little leaner. And like, I'm just trying to build. And I'll just say, like, my run streak started with absolutely no goals for a race. I did not sign up for any races. I was mostly running alone because I was just all in my head. I was kind of embarrassed to run with people. I want to be on my own. Yeah. Some of the clothes I was wearing wasn't fitting right. I was running in the morning. That was one of the big unlocks, was getting up in the morning, getting it done before any of my other priorities, especially before my girl.
Because again, I follow you on Instagram. I opened that up. I'm like, oh my God, that was posted an hour ago when he ran 15 miles.
Yeah.
Again, it was a long journey. It was a long journey, but good for you, man. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah. So that's how it started, slow.
Yeah, okay. 4.5 years ago, I did the quick math, like almost 4.5 years ago. 1,619 divided by 365 is 4.4.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah. That is so kudos, man.
Yeah, no, I share it. And, there's many run streakers out there, and there's many run streakers that have way longer run streaks than I have. I think of one of our franchise owners in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. He has been running since high school. He's amazing, Fred, shout out. And but he's inspired me, and many others have inspired. When I receive notes on Instagram or in the office that are like, hey, your run streak got me out the door, like that, quite frank, that makes my day. Like that, if my run journey helps someone else get back to running, consider going out for a walk, like my day is complete. Like that goes back to why I've continued to work at Fleet Feet. Is if I can change someone's life or inspire someone to do something they think they could do with running, with walking, that's what gives me the ultimate joy. So I'll continue to post and share on my Instagram.
May I add to that? I'm not joking. I believe I wanted to reach out to you after you hit 1,000. I wanted to reach out to you the whole time. And we like each other's stories and stuff. It's not like I wasn't communicating with you, but I had meant to. And I have a 3-year-old, so I must have gotten, a couple years ago, I must have gotten distracted. But I remember I was obviously following that, and my personal story. I was, obviously I had injuries, and I didn't gain a bunch of weight, but I thought David as a runner, competitive runner, was over. Yeah. I always had. I was like, really, me and running, has like a big mental toll on me. Like, I am the runner, so without running, what am I? I don't really mean that. Like, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a friend. I know that, but like internally, it's like an NFL player. Like when Andrew Luck had to retire. You know what I mean? He retired early from the Indianapolis Colts. Like, yeah. I'm sure internally, like, he didn't want to, but it was really, he had injuries and it was affecting him. So obviously he's more than just a football player, but truly to the core, what does he want to do is play football. I wanted to run. So I thought the days of this says from that you can't really see it, but it's a poster from Bill Rogers that says Run Boston. David, Run Boston. And that was in 2010, before I ever even ran in college. I was just about to graduate from high school, and I always wanted to do that. Then the Boston bombing happened, and I was like, I really want to run Boston. So Boston and New York, and really just running a marathon was always a goal. So then I started to see your run streak, and I was like, well, I'm not going to run. Maybe I'm going to give myself time because, I have a kid and stuff. And yes, that is true. I have a kid, so my days are more packed. I can't just like do whatever the heck I want. I have to make sure my son is in daycare, or if it's a Saturday, I need to, hey, my wife needs to watch him.
Yeah.
It takes a lot more logistics, but your run streak, I was like, well, I'm kind of just making excuses when you think about it, because it is possible. Anything truly is possible. Like, yes, I'm not going to go fly, but anything logically like is possible. So like I can go run a marathon, and I'd be like, oh no, I don't have what it takes to like, I'm like, I don't have the attention span and the passion to go and do the extra stuff like the physical therapy that I knew I was going to need to do, or the rehab. But I was like, well, Victor's running he has 2 kids, and if he, you know what I mean, that's his goal, and it did help me. You know, there's a couple other people who I had conversations with, but you were definitely integral in my push to get back and to take a shot at the marathon, which I did. I wore this for you, my Wilmington, North Carolina shirt, back to the place where I met you. You know, at least the home state. And the marathon's a crazy journey. We could have a whole conversation about the marathon, but I just wanted to say thanks and keep posting. You know, that is a big thing. Like with running, like people, like I hope no one ever like. And Gilbert is posting a lot of stuff about what he's doing, like our comebacks. I don't ever want someone to think that a post is like a brag. I'm sure there are people who do post to brag, but I never saw your stuff as bragging. And I hope that things that I don't post are about bragging. In fact, I get messages still. Like I posted a lot of things about my long runs going into the marathon. I started saying to myself, like, I don't know. I don't want to post this, because what if someone's going to look at my times and be like feel bad about themselves? I don't know what is happening internally for everybody, but the opposite did happen in terms of a lot of people reached out to me during my marathon training. So I'm going to keep posting, and I hope you do too. And that's a crazy run streak. And I want to ask a question, like, truly, this is crazy to me. There are days where I either didn't have the time. I'm sure getting sick is really hard. You have 2 kids. You have double the amount of kids I have. What really is? I guess some of it might be obvious, like the time, but to you, what is the hardest part to keep that streak alive?
Yeah, it brings me super happy to hear too, David. Like that when I post, brought you inspiration.
I'm not lying.
Yeah, I mean, dude, like, and I have the same dialogue internally. Like, I don't want to be perceived as bragging or look at me, look, I'm out for this run. Like, that's never the goal has been. Right. Just like when we're in running stores, is just sharing your experience and journey to inspire questions and can I do that? And so that's tremendous. I really appreciate you sharing that. I would say the hardest with the run streak comes not as much sleep. I'll just say like that. I have the 16-19 and average 10.4 miles over that run streak this year. The past 6 months has been a little bit lower because I do have what's called a torn plantar plate in my second toe, which does require surgery and the things, but I'm also working with a physical therapist to help mitigate, manage it, which is phenomenal. Shout out to physical therapists out there. You're incredible. And so I would say that the lack of sleep, that is challenging, but I think optimizing and taking, some solutions when I'm really fatigued, like Pillar is a magnesium, triple magnesium solution that I noticed with my Whoop that I get deeper sleep. And so maybe my amount of hours isn't quite long, but my quality has gotten nicer as I've eliminated alcohol, as I've done, been much more intentional with my diet, my nutrition, my supplements, things like that. So I'd say that's the toughest, is managing the lack of sleep. And I will still force myself. If I have a 6 a.m. flight, that means my alarm is going off at 2 a.m. and I'm getting out the door at 2:30 and I'm getting my run in because I don't want TSA to compromise my run streak. So those are probably some of the more challenging, where I'm questioning to myself, what am I doing out here at 3 a.m. to get in my minimum mile? But most times I make it 3 or 4 or 5 miles, especially if I'm traveling from East Coast to West Coast, because with those travel days, they can be challenging and there's always things. But I would say lack of sleep at times. I'm getting better, work in progress. And then also just getting it done in the morning. That is just get it done in the morning. It's become therapeutic. I listen to podcasts. Sometimes I'm in silence, but it's just amongst you mentioned it, amongst the privilege we have to be parents, to have be employed, to have all the amazing things we have in our daily lives, it can stack up quickly and your time gets away from you. So if I'm able to have that moment to myself in the morning, have wake up, even though it hurts, like 4:30, sometimes 5:30, depending on what season it is. If my kids are in school, it's earlier. If they're in the summertime, it's a little bit later, so camp start a little bit later. And so, but just owning the morning and making it my time, that's been tremendous. To your point, like I don't want to put all the burden on my wife, and especially on a Saturday when it's my moment to show up and be the best version of myself to my
Right.
kids, to my wife, to everyone that I'm around, and I'm the best version of myself if I'm able to get in some miles in the morning.
You're an awesome guy, dude. I have so much to talk about, and yeah, yeah. It's almost, and I don't mean like it can be selfish. A running goal can be
100%.
selfish. It's like, yes, it's great that you're taking care of your body. There's worse things you could be doing. You could be going to the casino, and no, I'm going to Vegas for the first time with my best friend, my college
Nice.
teammate. So like, yes, you could have fun and whatnot, but like, you could be going gambling every single night or going to the bar and
Yeah.
you're running. But it can have that moment of like, okay, well, there's like memes that are funny, like I don't know, I don't want to butcher the memes, but it's like people are posting Instagram reels of like the Sunday long run, like you become like you're the second child or however many kids, like you did the like your wife, you come home and it's like, oh, poor baby, like they've been taking care of the house, now you need to be like coddled with the
Yeah.
because you just did your long run. That's a joke obviously, but it's kind of playing it is a quote kind of selfish thing unless you do it on your own time and you wake up extra early. Obviously, you're going at like 9 a.m. and the family's at the park. That's not terrible. I've done that. Like, hey, I'll meet you guys. But if you're doing it all the time, it can get like, okay. So you're balancing both of those things really well, which is awesome. And I had one more thing about the run streak, but it left my mind. So I'm gonna keep in my mind to take up. But I have one more question after this.
Yeah.
But what was my other question about the run streak? Really fast. Oh, it was adding on to this. One more thing to add on with sleep and alcohol. You know, I drink socially, but during my marathon, I trained in the winter. I have no aspirations to train in the summer in Florida. It's 110 degrees outside right now with like humidity. I'm My time doing that is over.
Yeah.
So I do my winter training. That's when I did my last marathon. However, if I ever want to run New York, I'm gonna. New York is in October, no, or yeah, October, November. I would have to, but maybe I'll be a
Yeah.
snowbird and go live in like I have some friends who live in New England. That's my like dream to be a snowbird. I
There
posted
you
that
go.
on my Strava. I was like, F this. I'm just done with Florida summers, man. Like I'll run, I'll get my 4 miles in, but the thought of going more than that, more than like 5, 6 miles right now is crazy.
Yeah.
But when I was training, it was nice weather out. I would have like and I'd have like a drink or two. I would wake up and I'd still have that, even if I had just like a drink or two. No, not hangover, but not as refreshed as I wanted to be.
Yeah.
So during my training, I'm cutting out alcohol completely because it's just it's. I said to my wife like it's just like wasting my time.
Yeah.
It's just draining me. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure you've taken it out. You still miss like the IPAs with your buddies. Luckily, there's a lot of alternatives,
Yeah.
but. So like I'm not giving up alcohol completely, but I definitely am for running. So I hear you on that 100% because it really does affect your sleep.
Yeah.
So good for you. That's definitely smart. Okay, we've talked a lot. I'm excited for more. We will have a Victor part 2. But I ended when we have a guest on. We are going to. I like this question a lot. I asked David this, and I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to ask every guest that we have. It's just simple, and it's as open ended as you want it to be. What makes running so special?
I would say running for me, I mean, it changed my life, and that's one of our internal. Carefully, if you running changes everything. For me, it absolutely did at a young age. I think at in high school when I started getting into the cross country, the principle around what you put into it, you typically get out. So if you're consistent and you put in the work, you typically get positive outcomes. And applying that into my studies, into my work, you start to see that even if you're not the most talented, academically or athletically, if you're consistent and you're relentless, like your poster says back there, like you can start to compound and build over time. And I've just learned, like, that's something that has changed my life. I mean, with running and the things that has opened up for me. And so I think a lot about that and what running has meant. And also some of my strongest relationships, close friends, the best man at my wedding, I met running. And so, talk about, and some of my visits to both work, like when I visit a Fleet Feet and we went on a run on the tobacco trail, or I visit someone else. And when you're stride by stride with someone and you're having a discussion out on a run, like you overcome that like awkward barrier of getting to know someone pretty quickly when you're out there for a run. And
You're doing the same thing. Yeah. It's like, what are we doing, man?
Thing.
Yeah.
You're sweating together, you're sharing. And I often share within like our training programs in our stores that running changes everything. Moments happen out on the run. And so I'd say that just the overall principles around what you put into it, you typically get out. And if you're consistent and relentless, it's typically positive outcomes and learnings along the way. And then the relationships that I've built running out on the run have been lifelong relationships. And as I talk to more people and connect, and like you sharing that posting and that 10-mile run, that was memorable. I know I have many memorable moments with people that I've met out on a run, or you get up to the top of a mountain, or you do a trail race and you have these epic experiences that just stick with you for your lifetime. And so, yeah, that's what running has meant.
That's beautiful. We met through running, and I cannot wait for many more conversations. Hopefully some miles together. I'm sure we'll end up in the same place at some point. My goal is to run Boston. I know you go sometimes with Fleet Feet and whoever,
absolutely.
So maybe we'll get a little shakeout run in there. That would be magical and amazing. So I appreciate your time so much, man. Keep up that run streak. I'm excited to see it hit 2,000. No pressure, but I'm following and I'm proud of you. And you are welcome on anytime. Thank you for your over an hour you spent with me on this Friday. And I look forward to seeing you again soon, man.
Likewise. I appreciate the opportunity, what you're doing for running, you sharing your story and the platform you're creating. Like, keep it up. Let's go.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. That means more to me than you know. Thank you.